I want to touch on the other, to me, more optimistic aspect of what these technologies are all about. And that's the application of this framework called governing knowledge commons here. You know, in the book that first turned me on to your work, that's literally what the title was. And it's what a lot of the authors, other authors as well as you, kind of bring in these concepts from this idea of knowledge commons and governance commons into this framework of how are we going to manage smart city technology and the related kinds of technology and the data management necessary for it. But sort of one of the things that weirdly, when I look through this volume and I see these essays, I don't always see the clearest description of what the experience of running a tech institution by knowledge commons principles would be. So what is this governing knowledge commons framework, first of all, and how would we see it applied in a more political circumstance?
Mm-hmm. Well, okay. So the reason why you don't see this many practical applications of the JKC is, it's very simple. This is analytical framework, first of all. It doesn't mean we cannot use it, but it just, we're working on different levels here. So with the special issue, with the monograph Governing Knowledge Commons in Smart Cities, this is an excellent source for anyone who's interested in smart cities, who wants to understand what's wrong with them and how to govern them responsibly. And so in most, so let me speak about the framework first, and then I'll go to the difficulties of managing commons in real life, because those were, like I said. So the JKC is a framework that allows us to see the actors who are in most cases clashing around a shared resource or a resource which is which is scarce. JKC also gives us the lens to understand the conflicts around the resource. And this is something which I find particularly useful. We get to see, different levels of decision making around different resources. And one case study we discussed before the show, Pittsburgh. So many brilliant people work there. Carnegie Mellon, Pittsburgh University. So many people who actually wanted this to work. The very smart city agenda, the idea that IBM was willing to participate. This was very interesting, very promising. The reason they couldn't let it get off the ground is that, first of all, they ran out of funding, and this is something all smart cities have to deal with. And another reason, there were several groups of interest who cannot find common knowledge. And the third problem, and this is, thank you, JKC, you understand that, these groups of smart people, they didn't really consult with the people they were designing this tech for.
Yeah, ordinary people. Yeah.
Yeah, the people who in the end, the people who will be using this, smart shuttles, or the people who will be, who would, benefit from implementing new bus routes. When you do not understand your audience, when you do not understand the people their actual needs, this won't work. And so JKC, through this lens, we were able to identify the key issues, right? The lack of communication between the actors, the lack of funding, the lack of connection between the designers of the technology, policymakers, and also the public, us, all of us. And so when it comes to the practical matters, I would say I'm looking at Europe because over the last 3 years, I would say over the last 3 years, the Data Act, the Data Governance Act, they mentioned common governance of data.
Right.
And so the project called Gaia X, this is about creating a sovereign, this is funny, but this is sovereign European infrastructure, you know, insulated from American companies.
Right.
And actually, this is working. So when they all started, it was not exactly clear what they're doing, and now we understand that they're building servers, they're building, AI capacities for now. And I'm looking at the attempts to theorize that, which sort of come in late, and because we don't really know what's happening yet, because these technologies, they're not there yet. We have a vision.
They're not in action. They're
No.
not integrated that much into the infrastructure of the cities and people's lives yet.
No. Like we see that the European health data space is coming in.
Right.
So this is a place to watch, and this is something that, as far as I understand, it will be run by European companies on European servers, and this is very interesting. And so one of the theories of how we understand commons is that commons should be public. Like,
right.
This is a public resource.
That's the whole concept of what it means to have a commons. It's a public resource that a community negotiates among itself to manage.
Yes, absolutely. And another vision, and I think this vision is more complex, but it will be realized eventually. Yeah. This will be happening through public-private partnerships, which we all don't exactly like, but in many cases, when it comes to technology, the government just doesn't have enough funds to support this. Yeah. And so in the case of the European Union, their commons, they are very, very complex in design and very controversial too. So for instance, with the health study space, for now, the idea is that they will be reusing data for scientific purposes.
Okay.
But eventually,
the
idea is to create a health data market.
Right.
Yes. And so this is like we flip the coin. So for the finance data, for the banking data, for the transportation data, European Union wants to create this markets of data. And so when I first read about it I think it was Data Governance Act, I was baffled. I was like, oh, okay. I wrote a piece about it in MIT Review, and it got so many hits because people were mad. Like, they were so angry. And then I was interviewing European officials, and they were like, this is not so bad. I mean, we cannot sustain these technologies. So we need to design a way to reuse them in responsible way. Yeah. So this is why I said it's controversial, right? So we have these markets of data, which eventually will be reused for commercial purposes.
Right.
But we also have a clear framework, European framework, right, which forbids, certain uses of technology. Right. So I'm looking and I'm waiting for something specific to come out, like when health data space gets implemented. I think I will be looking into that.
Oh yeah, for sure. Because I can already, just in terms of my immediate reaction to that description, see so many problems coming out. Like, if, for example, private or even like gray to black market data brokers potentially get their hands on some of that information and some of those databases, right? Again, one of the things that I find fascinating about, the science of data and and the field of data brokerage is how easy it is to de-anonymize data once you start cross-referencing certain databases against each other. And you can very easily kind of connect what was anonymous data in a, say, health data database, and then cross-reference that with, say, a financial information database, and cross-reference that with, say, census information or other kinds of population data that are all publicly accessible and that one can get your hands on pretty easily. And once you bring all those together, then you create a kind of database of databases that can get you all, that has done so much surveillance work that you didn't even really have to pay anyone to do.
I would say that we already have that.
There's that too, right? The fact that this already happens, and it's how, so many sketchy phone numbers can send me so many automated messages telling me that subscription services I don't have are about to expire, and that's why they need my credit card information. And I'm sure we all kind of experience that too, in like waves of awkward phone messages and voicemails left behind.
So there is an interesting, I would say, an interesting shift here. So when it comes to Canada, we have a very weak legislation when it comes to data protection.
Yes.
And as you know, like in most cases, those messages and phone calls, they come right after you've paid your bills, like one of the bills, like your phone bill. After that, you get all these scam messages. And so, for instance, in Europe, they do not have that. You know why? Because for quite some time, they were trying to legitimize the data governance industry. Right. And this is something I think we should be doing because, like you said, it's impossible to prevent data from leaking. Yeah. I mean, cybersecurity is one aspect of it, but using cross-referencing to de-anonymize data, this is something that can be easily done. So the only way we can do it right is using legal terms. Basically, we can maybe draw some parallels with the Digital Millennium Act in the US. I think it was 1995, right? Something like that. So basically, before that, it was a wild market, right? Yeah. You can copy everything. And then you get a sentence for that. And so I think what Europe is doing, and in my view, what we should be doing in Canada, we need to start taking this seriously and explain to the players in the field that if you guys cross the boundary, you will be sentenced, right? Yeah. Because so far, this is a compliance costs. Yeah. So far, you pay fine, you're good, right? Yeah. And this is
people can budget for those.
They do. Yeah. They do that. This is probably part of the budget, right? And the problem, for instance, cybersecurity problem, when data leak happens, it's almost impossible to prove that you've suffered from it. Yeah. And this is a huge issue too, and something they're trying to fix in Europe. And I mean, we need to be careful here because I'm not advocating for, I don't think we should suffocate this industry that much. But I think if we start, playing fairly and we have this clear playing field, they will comply, right? You have the data, say you have data markets. You can use the data, but you cannot keep it indefinitely. You cannot sell it. You cannot use it for the purposes which were not outlined in the contract. And if you do, this is sentence. This is not a fine. So maybe, I'm looking, I'm waiting to see how it turns out in Europe. And I'm hoping this will work out because I think there is something we could learn here. Yeah. Maybe not everything, but
for sure.